say lob it to Ryan Perez in the paint off a couple of screens.
Esquivel to Garcia. Off the deflection. Los Fresnos comes back and wins. Now Santa Maria will put up a three. Bang! Santa Maria!
Here's Warner. Here comes a headed jam. Counted for two. Field. Adios! And the Falcons win on a walk-off. And it's saved. What a game.
Smacked to the left. That is gone.
Lob for Perez. That's my play. Off the backboard. Counting and a win. And a win. Ryan Perez wins the game for the Santa Rosa Warriors, and they go nuts. And why not?
Welcome one and all once again to another Luke Fruia show. I'm Jacob Young. This is Rio Sports Live Network. Looking forward to bringing you all coverage of all, of course, this show once again. Of course, just talking about, well, sports from the RGV and other things, of course, of that sort. Should be very exciting as, well, district play in girls basketball officially has begun as of last night, which was very exciting in general. Of course, we had some big games for you all. And, of course, one of the games that I was at was indeed, on paper, supposed to be a big one in general. Of course, we'll talk a little bit about, well, what to expect this weekend here on RSL Network. Next week, of course, well, this week being the last week of tournaments, next week being the tournament of, well, no tournaments, so next week being, of course, that final weekend, or that final week before the holiday season, to be exact. So final week of school for a lot of schools, I think for everyone really, because, well, it ends on that weekend of the 20th, the 18th, 19th, 20th, all of that, of course. And so, of course, only 5 days from there till Christmas, 4 days from Christmas Eve, and all that fun stuff. So, it should be very exciting in general for, of course, this week. And then, of course, we'll just be able to get set for all that greatness, all that great stuff. But going on to it, of course, this weekend, there will be a couple of tournaments. One of the tournaments being the CE Vale tournament in La Feria. The next one, of course, being the Palmas Classic. And that Palmas Classic, of course, being by McAllen ISD, meaning it will be at McAllen schools. We don't necessarily know where the final will be, but of course we'll have that information for you all on the broadcasts tomorrow and where we'll be at and all that fun stuff for the final. Of course, a year prior to that was the Palmas Classic ended up being the week before, which was last week. And so that first week really of December is known for a lot of places of doing their holiday parade, because it's just that perfect timing in a way. It's the first week of December. They don't necessarily have to worry about it being too late into the year or anything like that. So they make it that first, of course, week of December. And so they had the tournament there last year. It was at Mac High for the whole weekend until, of course, Saturday, where it ended up being at Nicky Rowe, because they couldn't have it at Mac High because it's on that Bicentennial Road where it's shut down for the Christmas parade and all of that, where they have carnival games. And just, of course, that's where the parade kind of takes place. And so they have to already have everybody out of the parking lots because that's where people park and all that crazy stuff. So they had the final at Nicky Rowe. I believe that's the reason why, of course, they decided, okay, let's wait a week for the tournament of the Palmas Classic. Make it this week. That will be exciting due to the fact of, well, if we make it this week for the Palms Classic, then Mac High can host the championship, and there's no problems from there. Most likely, that's what I'd have to guess is the reason for them to do that. Now, it's going to be, like I said, a very exciting tournament. The Mac High Bulldogs, the McAllen Memorial Mustangs, the Nicky Rowe Warriors last year. The Nicky Rowe Warriors faced off against none other than the Mac High Bulldogs, ended up defeating them that first time they got to play. And so that was always, of course, interesting just in general. So, like I mentioned, looking forward to it. Should be an exciting tournament in general. It's always a fun one to cover. I really don't necessarily think about it to be that fun, but since I've really gotten to do it since 21 and on, it's been a blast. And there's been a lot of great things happening in general for boys basketball already, girls basketball. But we expect to see some teams go deep into the playoffs this year for boys basketball as well, and that's always a good sign, a good signing for them. So looking forward to it. Of course, we have a lot to really get to in this one. Again, I'm Jacob Young. This is Rio Sports Live Network, and this is, of course, Talkin Sports, because another thing, of course, to really talk about, and we'll talk about it, is going to be college football, of course, still, because we have the final rankings. We have the final, the top 12 that made it into the playoffs, which is always exciting. A little bit of controversy, but not necessarily too much when you really dig deep into it. And then you move on into seeing not only for the top 12, but you also get to see the really just, again, these teams that it was an exciting process. And then the biggest thing that I really want to get covered is the NWSL. There's a reason of why I want to talk about that, and I will, because it's a big thing. It's the Trinity Rodman news, and it's really fascinating in general, because it has a lot to do with American sports in my eyes, and because when we get into it, there's the rest of the world for soccer. They do not have a salary cap. The NWSL has a salary cap. The same goes really for the MLS, kind of. I think they broke free from that about a couple of years ago, but the NWSL still does. And, of course, the rest of the sports in the U.S. have salary caps. So it's just something, of course, to think of, and we'll see exactly why. But we're going to take a quick little break. When we return, we will talk about it more. We'll be right back after this. Stay tuned.
Rev up your future with Texas Southmost College's Auto Body Repair Program. In just 2 semesters, you'll gain the skills to become an auto body repair specialist. Learn using industry-standard iCar Academy to get you job-ready fast. If you're ready to drive your career forward, TSC's Auto Body Repair Program is the place to start. Classes are filling fast, so visit tsc.edu and apply today.
Elevation, AT4, AT4X, Denali. Case closed. Fruia GMC, we're professional grade.
Back live, we go once again here. Very exciting to really talk about this once again. As we kind of mentioned it, of course, that's your weekend of what will be on RSL Network, to be exact. We'll talk to you all a little bit more about it. And going down to it for just, of course, what we have on the schedule one more time, just to make sure that everyone knows what will be on. Thursday, of course, we have 2 boys basketball tournaments. The CE Vale, that's going to be by Joe Bowling. His camera op will be with Ribs, a.k.a. Jake Postia. That will be on RSL 1. RSL 2 will be myself with AJ at the City of Palms tournament. That's going to be all 3 days. Very exciting once again. Then also on Sunday, I almost forgot about this. So we'll have the Soccer Upper Valley Media Days. That's going to be interesting, to say the least. I'm looking forward to that. I'll probably end up showing up on that one. If not, well, it's going to be taken care of by Joe Bowling. So that'll be interesting, to say the least. That's what's coming up for this weekend itself. Now let's really dive into something that's pretty crazy. Let's start off, of course, with college football. We already talked about it, that we were going to cover this. And, well, It's time. Officially on Sunday, about 11 a.m., we will officially, after, of course, the conference championships from the Friday and the Saturday, we got to see the final rankings. And this was by the College Football Playoff Committee. And let's look at exactly the college football playoffs, to be exact. And I'm trying to find exactly the playoff bracket. There we go. Because this is pretty interesting, and it's a good bracket in my eyes. I like what I saw there. It's understandable that a lot of them mainly stayed the same from the week prior, because a lot of conference championships would not necessarily make the difference. Now, there were a couple of teams that ended up getting left out, and I can completely understand why. Let's start off with, of course, the number one team that really kind of got left out after the Big 12 championship. The Big 12 championship, of course, was Texas Tech Red Raiders taking on the BYU Cougars. Now, the reason being of why the Cougars were playing against the Texas Tech Red Raiders, they both locked themselves in to the conference championship that week. But they had played against each other earlier in the season, and it was against none other than, it was against each other. And it was at Texas Tech. Texas Tech ended up, I believe, whether or not Texas Tech destroyed BYU the first time. And then BYU got to play against them again in Jerry World for the championship, the Big 12 Conference Championship. And BYU, I think, if they had played them closer, BYU's in the 12-team playoff. It's really as simple as that. But instead, they got blown out twice against Texas Tech, showing they were not a playoff-worthy team. So, then we go back to the next team that was eliminated from the college football playoffs. And that was 2-loss Notre Dame. That's a little bit shocking in a lot of people's eyes. But once again, let's remind ourselves, Notre Dame, they do not play in a college, they do not play in a conference for football, but they play in a conference for basketball, baseball, soccer. The list goes on for their sports. The only sport that they play that they are an independent is football. And when you're an independent, you don't have a conference, you don't have a national, you don't have a conference, so you don't get to play against those. You don't have a conference championship, so it's really difficult to judge this team after their final game. And the way that, of course, we look at it is Notre Dame, they lost twice. They lost their first week against Miami, and then they lost in last crazy fashion against A&M. Now, here's the argument for Notre Dame right now. Well, that holding call that was not called against A&M and that last touchdown, that's the reason why the refs screw them up. Let's be clear on this. I can go back to that game constantly, and I can mark out so many holdings that were not called for Notre Dame. Is that Notre Dame were on offense and held A&M several times. And still, there were no calls. A&M, moments before the drive, block in the back on a touchdown return, or on a kickoff return for a touchdown. That's the truth. So, Notre Dame missing the playoffs was a little shocking, but when it came down to it, was the U, which is Miami, Florida, and Notre Dame. Miami, Florida had gone head-to-head with Notre Dame and beaten Notre Dame. That's what it came down to. That's the 10th seed right there that Miami University were in. James Madison and Tulane had automatic bids into the college football playoff. They were mainly the only team that had automatic bids, because the year prior, After, of course, the first rendition of this 12-team playoff, the College Football Committee said, okay, no more automatic bids for the Power 4 conferences. That means no automatic bid for the SEC, no automatic bid for the Big 12, no automatic bid for the ACC, no automatic bid for the Big 10. Because they won't necessarily need it, they'll automatically get in either way because they're most likely undefeated or one loss. And with that being said, a one-loss team, an undefeated team, a two-loss team, they're going to make the playoffs 9 times out of 10. And that's the truth. Yes, there were some exceptions this year. But for the most part, the committee did a really good job, in my eyes, of being able to pick the teams correctly. Now, there were a couple of things that I would say were questionable. Besides, of course, that Texas A&M at 7th and Ole Miss at 6th. The reason, of course, being Ole Miss loses their head coach a week prior. That's Lane Kiffin. So Lane Kiffin goes over to LSU. He wanted to stay there for the playoffs, but ended up losing or ended up having to leave sooner because of the thing called the transfer portal that opens up January 1st in the middle of the playoffs. So there was that particularly right there. So we go back to it. That was a little confusing. A&M losing to Texas, yes. Big Ten was a big reason of why Texas A&M moved out of. When you looked at every single team, it made more sense. Oregon being 5th was an interesting choice, to say the least. Their only loss being against Indiana, but again, that Indiana loss was very early in the season, so they were able to get back to it. So there were just a couple of things. For Texas A&M, their road to the championship would include, if they beat Miami at home, Ohio State, then would most likely play Georgia. If they were to get past Ohio State, let's be clear, they would most likely play Georgia in the semifinals. That would be at the Fiesta Bowl. So there's already a big step forward for A&M in both of those. That would be a big proving ground. It is, Billy Lucci said it perfectly. And he said it on the Luchador podcast, on his own podcast, and things like that for A&M. It's definitely not easy, but it's the most fun because it's true. This is the way that Texas A&M can prove themselves, is playing against Ohio State, playing against Georgia, saying that A&M had the biggest cupcake schedule in general. But that's, of course, really only by one fan base in general. That's my take on that. Now let's, of course, build up into the rest of the teams now. 1 seed, Indiana. 2 seed being Ohio State. 3 seed being Georgia. 4 seed being Texas Tech. The 5th seed being Oregon, the 6th seed being Ole Miss, the 7th seed being Texas A&M, the 8th seed being Oklahoma University, and the 9th seed being Alabama. That's where things even got even more confusing of why Alabama was where they were and all of that fun stuff. Then, of course, you go down to the 9th seed. The 9th seed being Alabama. Like we mentioned, the 10th seed being Miami, Florida University, the 11th seed being Tulane, and the 12th seed being James Madison University. Again, both of those two teams, the 11th and 12th, they had automatic bids to go through to the playoffs because they were where they were. And so it's, in my eyes, a very solid college football playoff for the 12 teams. Now, of course, someone to expand it to 24. Yes, I love college football as well. I'd love for that to happen, but at the same time, people think that it would change the situation of, well, the 12 teams, or the 24 teams to be exact. Remember, the Power 4 is going to just get more teams in there. There's not going to be really the difference of Power 5s, or of G5s to be exact, getting in as well. It would be very confusing, and you sometimes don't want that. People want it more because they don't like bowl games. Well, let's talk about the rest of the teams and where, of course, they're headed. Because that was, to some people, was a little shocking. Let's go with, of course, the rest of the bowl games, to be exact. The bowl game schedule is pretty fun for this year. 2 of the two of my favorite bowl games in general that I've always loved, and I think that, of course, are very underrated, is the Citrus Bowl. And, well, of course, some other bowls like that, but it wasn't necessarily called the Citrus Bowl. But now, of course, they've kind of added on these sponsors and done all of this. It's the Pop-Tarts Bowl, and it is, of course, the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. Those are my two favorites because for the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, you have the SEC, and they get to take on the Big Ten, one of the Big Ten teams. And then the other one, of course, being the Pop-Tarts Bowl, Big 12 ACC. A blast of a bowl scenario, blast of a bowl situation in general because, well, now you have the Texas Longhorns getting to face off against none other than, well, their Big Ten opponent. I forget who that is. I can look that up very quickly. And then, of course, for the ACC and those games, there were some that they missed the top. They decided to opt out of the bowl games. That's Notre Dame. So it gets a little more confusing in general and all of that. But, again, bowl season is one of the most glorious times of year because it's a football bowl game every single day, sometimes multiple during the day. And it passes time on Christmas Day. It passes time on, the week of Christmas. It's so much fun. Yes, I'm a media guy. I also love advertisements, and so that's my favorite thing. The Pinstripe Bowl, the Bad Boy Motors Bowl, once again, from the Pop-Tart Bowl, which is my favorite one now because of the way that they've marketed it has been absolutely phenomenal, to, again, the Cheez-It Bowl, the Citrus Bowl, the Tax Slayer Bowl. Just the list goes on. The Valero Alamo Bowl right in San Antonio. That one's so much fun, too, because you don't know what you're going to get for those games. And this year it's USC, Southern California taking on TCU right there. It's going to be packed with a lot of TCU fans, but let me tell you something. Southern California, they're going to pack that place, too. So that's a blast. It's a destination bowl. It's worth it. I got to go to my first ever bowl game last year. And, well, I take that back. My first ever bowl game as an adult last year, because I forgot that I had gone to the Texas Bowl back when I was 12 years of age, 13 years old, and that was to support A&M and versus Northwestern, I believe. If not Northwestern, it was Northern Illinois. Point is, it was a very, very fun game in general to be at, and it's a fun atmosphere and all that cool stuff. So really, that is the heart of, in my eyes, that is the heart of college football. And now with the playoffs, yes, that's where you want to be at. Let me tell you about, of course, the teams that opted out for the postseason for any bowl games. College football teams that opted out for the bowl games is pretty interesting because the list of them are for 90% of them are teams that lost their head coach, had to fire their head coach this year. And so that's from Auburn, Kansas State University, Kansas. Like, there's a lot of teams that end up not going to a bowl game because they decided not to. They opted out. And there are reasons for that for most teams. Now, it doesn't seem like there's a real reason for Notre Dame to opt out of theirs, but it's because Kansas State and Iowa State actually received $500,000 fines from the Big 12 for opting out of their bowl games this year. Both teams felt that the wake of losing their coaches and transitioning to new leadership, they had better ways to spend their time than preparing for a bowl game. That is fair. For Notre Dame, just deciding not to go into their bowl game is kind of interesting because it makes you think, Now, with a little bit of rumors going on, that Notre Dame may lose their head coach very, very soon to the NFL. Because the rest of, like I said, the rest of the coaches or the rest of the teams lost their head coaches this season. So that is the reason why they opted out. So just something to keep in mind. Again, the bowl season, it's upon us. It starts on the 13th of December. So I believe this weekend. So stay tuned for it all. I'm Jacob Young, the Fruia Sports Live Network. We're going to take a break. When we return, we're going to transition into talking a little soccer. It's going to be very fun, so stay tuned.
Kenny Perez came from a small town in Texas. At Kenny Perez Law, we won't stop fighting until our clients get what's rightfully theirs. We're right by your side, no matter what. Call Kenny Perez Injury Lawyers today, 956-999-1111.
Turn your passion into a powerful career at Texas Southmost College. Our automotive technology program will train you in everything from maintenance to full vehicle systems repair. Earn a certificate or associate degree and get certified to work as a C maintenance or B-level technician. You'll be guided by seasoned instructors who have c.edu.
No matter where you are in life, Texas Southmost College is here to help you move forward. Whether you're starting fresh, changing careers, or gaining new skills, TSC has affordable programs designed to fit your goals. It's time to take the next step. Think big. Think bright. Think TSC.
Back we go once again to hear from none other than Luke Fruia Luke Fruia Buick GMC and Cadillac. If you're in the market for a new car, come check out Luke Fruia Buick GMC and Cadillac. Should be a great weekend, of course, of sports. Once again, we already talked a little bit about it, but now we move on to this big topic. Again, I'm Jacob Young, Fruia Sports Live Network. And this is a big topic in general, just from not only my perspective, but from everybody's. And the reason of being is, well, because, yes, this is Trinity Rodman news of course, from the NWSL. And, of course, Trinity Rodman, you all know, the daughter of Dennis Rodman, really by, of course, just her last name and all that fun stuff. But we go back to it. This is a big thing. If you want to learn more, of course, about her journey and where she ended up, of course, why she's big time as well, because, well, now she's a player for the U.S. Women's National Team. She has been for a while and loves the game of soccer and has really made a difference in that realm. And, of course, she's off the right wing normally and, again, makes a huge difference on the field. And for the U.S. Women's National Team, I mean, she kind of mixes with that right wing into, of course, being a part of, well, almost a right striker, to be exact, with the help of, well, back in, of course, the Olympics 2 summers ago, was with none other than Sophia, at the time Smith, now Wilson, and then Mallory Swanson. They were called the Triple Espresso because, of course, they were right there, and they all three scored most of the goals for the U.S. women's national team in the Olympics for that gold medal that they ended up bringing back. And Trinity Rodman has been playing for none other than the Washington Spirit in the NWSL. There was a big thing, of course, after that next year, of course, for the NWSL was big for them because they also gained a lot of, not recognition, but they were able to get a new TV deal in 2023. And what their new TV, so it was during that season, what their new TV deal was, they had multiple games on ESP. They had multiple games on ESPN. They had multiple games on CBS, your local CBS network, as well as CBS Sports, as well as Prime Video, and, of course, their own streaming app, which was completely free in WSL Plus, not to mention Ion Network showing those games. And so, of course, that meant that now there was potentially a lot more revenue for the league of the NWSL, the National Women's Soccer League. And this was, of course, a big thing. Lots of players got, of course, contracts renewed. A couple of players had already left to go to the European side of things with, of course, the WSL picking up, the Women's Super League up in England picking up, of course, and so they had a couple of players go over there, like Naomi Girma, for example, just to name one right there, Emily Fox to name another, and even Corbin Albert and a couple of other players, Lindsay Horan as well, had already moved over to Europe there to play in the French League, French Women's Soccer League, which was, again, treating them very well in general. So the NWSL was behind on really that note, was just the payment in general, having that because they had a salary cap in general. And so that made things a little difficult. And for a lot of players, was a little confusing to say the least. And with that all being kind of thought of, a lot of players were thinking, okay, once that contract kind of expires for myself, I may think of doing that and going up to Europe potentially for just more money. Then you had the likes of even Alyssa Thompson this past year transfer over to none other than Chelsea, the reigning champions of the Women's Super League over in Europe, getting to play for, of course, the Women's Champions League over in Europe once again by UEFA. You don't get to do that over in, of course, America because they don't really have a championship sort of like that when you win the title for your domestic league. So with all of that kind of being thought of, this was a big thing. Trinity Rodman this year, her contract was going to expire. People thought that she was going to go over most likely to Europe. So everything, of course, Trinity Rodman could not get a championship this season against Gotham FC. Yes, the New York, New Jersey Gotham FC ended up winning the title this year in the finals. A very good game in general, but just New York, New Jersey Gotham just seemed like they wanted it more. And for 2 straight years in a row, Trinity Rodman could not get the championship that she had hoped for with the Washington Spirit. But that's not why she was thinking about leaving. It's just because the contract is expiring. And so she still tried to go into talks with the Washington Spirit. And so the Washington Spirit and Trinity Rodman they tried to offer Trinity Rodman a lot of money. And the reasoning, of course, with it was a very good reasoning. Because in 2027, or in 2020, after this year, after this new season in March, the contracts with the TV rights will expire. And so they'll get to renew those contracts for bigger money, most likely. ESPN, CBS, whoever, maybe one company will just outrightly own the rights to stream NWSL action. for a lot of money. And so that was the Washington Spirit's idea into how they were going to pay Trinity Rodman over the years for this massive contract. And so the Spirit were really trying their hardest to keep Trinity Rodman. And so this was even 2 hours ago from Just Women's Sports, and it's interesting, of course, to kind of just keep an eye on it. And so this is what they have to say right off the get-go. The Washington Spirit are all in on forward Trinity Rodman, with Club G General Manager Nathan Minion telling reporters that the 2025 NWSL runners-up are working pretty much daily to re-sign the free agent despite salary cap concerns. That's the key thing. Salary cap concerns. The NWSL, again, early on, when the Washington Spirit were going for trying to offer Trinity Rodman more money, which was going to be over $2 million. Yes, just $2 million. They rejected the salary cap. And so they rejected that offer. This is where things get interesting, because then the NWSLPA stepped in. The National Women's Soccer League Players Association steps in and says, that's not okay. You cannot reject players getting offers from other clubs due to the fact that is infringing on what they had agreed upon with the NWSL on their contract. So it's pretty interesting. So the rejection kind of and they're going back and forth right now. There's not really much else to kind of talk about besides, well, every single chance that they're getting, the Washington Spirit are trying to keep Trinity Rodman. And this is a big thing just in general for the league itself, because if Trinity Rodman can get the money that she basically deserves to make in the NWSL, all of a sudden now you're looking at some positives for the rest of the league. Right now, Sophia Wilson, a player that is as good, if not just a little bit better, because, well, again, she plays for the Portland Thorns, and I believe has been in the league a little bit longer and has held the goal record, or not goal record, but has had multiple seasons where she's played full seasons with 20 goals or more for the Portland Thorns. She's trying to also get paid correctly. She's entered talks with the Portland Thorns, and the Portland Thorns trying to keep her. We already saw a lot of players leave the Portland Thorns because they have either terminated the contracts or not elected to renew the contracts for those different players, but they have elected to renew the contract for Sophia Wilson. It's just going to take some time because they need to wait for this offer kind of to go through and to see how much they can definitely offer. And so the league, of course, the league last week rejected multi-year contract offer for the Spirit. Of the offer the Spirit extended to Rodman. In response, the NWSL Players Association filed a grievance that maintained the contract Rodman agreed to was consistent with the collective bargaining agreement and league rules, and said the NWSL's rejection violated Rodman's free agency rights. And that is true. It did. That's the craziest part about all of this, is that it did violate the rights of the collective bargaining agreement and the free agency of Trinity Rodman, because this is big. If the Washington Spirit cannot sign her, it's not even about other clubs that can probably try and sign her. It's about most likely Trinity Rodman will go to Europe, and there's nothing that they can do because she deserves to get paid. She has to watch out for herself first, and that name is known everywhere else, and she will still have that stardom, especially if the likes of Arsenal, Chelsea, even Man United or Liverpool decide to sign her. She will be a force to be reckoned with. the January transfer window is not too soon from now. It opens up, and all of a sudden there's going to be a lot of players, including in the NWSL, that will try to be gotten overseas. We've seen that big pull. We will continue to see that if the NWSL do not change their ways and aren't able to make enough money to keep these superstar players from going overseas and all of that. So that's kind of where we're at in that situation. Trinity Rodman, of course, we'll still keep an eye out for that because it's very exciting in general. When we return, we will talk a little bit more about soccer, but this time in high school soccer because it is moments away. It is around the corner. Once the new year strikes, guess what? It is full-time soccer. From, of course, the girls soccer side, the boys soccer side, 31-5A, 32-5A, 32-6A, 31-5A as well. A little bit of 35A to be exact. It's going to be interesting, like we mentioned. We'll talk about it when we return. Stay tuned.
This summer, settle in and reconnect with one another. South Padre Island has so many great places to stay. Condos, resorts, and hotels. Oh my! Book your summer getaway today. And start making memories poolside with the people you care about most. Visit SoPadre.com.
It means a lot to me. TFC has changed me to make me realize that I can accomplish things. Just don't give up. To where I'm going.
Permatemp Personnel Services has been servicing local businesses for the past 29 years.
Leave the hiring to us. Let us become your personal hiring guru.
We have a network of skilled employees to fit your needs.
Your success is our strategy.
Don't hesitate, call us now.
Back we go once again to hear from none other than Luke Fruia Motors. Luke Fruia Buick GMC and Cadillac. If you're in the market for a new car, come check out Luke Fruia Buick GMC and Cadillac. They will hook you up. They have the best service, best customer service, all that great stuff in general. Well, now we move on. Once again, with Jacob Young. This is Rio Sports Live Network talking soccer still, but moving on, of course, to some RGV soccer. Before we do that, very quickly, one of the biggest things to talk about is a little bit of college soccer. This happens to do, staying with, of course, Texas A&M University. It's just some breaking news. It happened a day ago, and this was very exciting that Texas A&M University, of course, earlier this year, their first ever head coach, their only head coach that they've ever had for women's soccer, had officially retired. G. Guerreri officially retired at the end of the 2025 season. And now, of course, for the 2026 season, you will have Mr. Bobby Shuttleworth as your head coach of the Fighting Texas Aggie girls, check that, women's soccer. So a new era of Aggie soccer begins. Welcome to the family, Coach Shuttleworth. And this is what he said: I am incredibly excited and truly humbled to accept the role of head soccer coach at Texas A&M University. I am eager to build on that legacy and serve this university, our student athletes, and the 12th man with passion, integrity, and pride. I am committed to honoring the winning tradition that has defended Texas A&M soccer by continuing to compete for championships at the highest level. We will strive to develop top-level players while also helping them grow as students, leaders, teammates, and individuals of high character. Our goal is to create an environment where student-athletes are challenged to reach their full potential on the field while being fully supported in their personal, academic, and life development off it. So this is the biggest thing for him in general. This is why this is very impressive. By the numbers, two-time national champion as an assistant coach. That's the last thing that he did was an assistant. So this is going to be his first time being a head coach, but he knows what it takes to win because he's seen it himself with Florida State University. Three-time ACC tournament champion, two-time ACC regular season champion. He's gone 17-1-1 in the NCAA tournament record. This is the key thing, too. 8 NWSL draft picks. As an assistant coach, once again. Very exciting there for this team. The way that he's been able to play well, the way that he's been able to really show how strong he is as a head coach is so great. So we go back to it, of course. Bobby Shuttleworth as the new head coach for Texas A&M women's soccer. Let's advance on, of course, to the next thing to talk about, which, once again, we mentioned it, media days for the Upper Valley for soccer, girls and boys soccer, is going to be this Sunday at about 9 a.m. is what I was seeing for the first teams to arrive. And so it should be very good in general to have it all, of course, just talk about it and talk to players. We mentioned it, of course, before. Kennedy Kaiser officially has signed. She signed last Thursday, I should say. I wasn't able to be there as I was at the Lafayette basketball tournament for the Wiseman, to be exact. But Kennedy Kaiser, she officially signed her letter of intent to play for none other than the Oklahoma Sooners. The Oklahoma University Sooners, looking forward to seeing what she can do there, and she still has her senior year to do it. That's her senior year to prove how good she can be. That's going to be key once again here for this season. They're still looking for that district championship. There's a lot that I want to ask, of course, if I end up going there to cover that whole thing. I want to ask, of course, Kennedy Kaiser. I want to ask Coach Matthew Kaiser on all of that as well, because it's very important and just how this season will go for these two, for this team in general. They're looking to try to get another district title this season. So that's going to be a big thing to wait and see how that will kind of all go. Against, of course, a very difficult Mackay Lady Bulldog team that's looking like they could potentially win district because of how young of a team they were a year ago. And so, of course, McAllen Memorial sweeping the Mackay Lady Bulldogs last season. I don't know if that's going to happen this year, where potentially they could share both games, basically, when they both matches at McAllen Veterans Memorial Stadium and at, of course, McAllen Memorial's football stadium, or soccer stadium to be exact. So looking forward to how this will all go, because this season's going to be very interesting. And then off of his inaugural season, I should say, as being head coach of the, I'll be right back.
Call Kenny. We're available to take your call 24/7, and we don't charge a fee unless we win your case. When you're in a car crash, call Kenny. Call 999-1111 now for a free consultation.
Back we go once again here from Luke Fruia, Buick GMC and Cadillac. We'll be out of here again in a bit. So, very exciting once again. After his, of course, season with the RGV Red Crowns, he will be, of course, head coach of none other than the Mission Veterans Memorial Patriots. So that's going to be very exciting once again, as we'll get you, of course, his name, Coach Rafa, to be exact. That's going to be very fun. So, exciting once again. We're looking forward to it, and looking forward to this soccer season in general. So, there's, of course, it's one of my favorite times of year for that in general, just because, yes, again, not necessarily that it's going to be cold for most of those soccer games, but it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out this season. And, again, for just them being able to have it all this year. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back after this.
The standard of excellence has always been Cadillac, so be iconic and drive one. Fruia Cadillac, Brownsville, Texas.
Or go horseback riding on the beach. And you can't forget about all the fun on the bay. South Padre Island has so much to do for the whole family. Book your summer getaway today. Visit sopadre.com.
Back we go once again here. An exciting show once again. We talked about the college football playoffs. We talked about, of course, Trinity Rodman and that situation going on and how big it is for the whole entire NWSL. And then, of course, talking about the soccer this season for the Valley and the RGV and how big that'll be. Big thing, of course, will be how can the Brownsville schools be able to compete this year, because so with the Upper Valley, even for the boys soccer, let me be more clear, for the boys soccer, have stepped up their game tremendously. You don't even know how much, but that is how good for the Upper Valley they have been in general, and how much they've been picking up indeed the pieces, to say the least. Considering how, of course, Sherryland, how good they've been constantly every single season, I think they'll be one team to look out for once again in UIL. For St. Joseph Academy, how are they going to do this season? It's always a question mark for them. They should do all right. Possibly regional finals. It's going to be very difficult for them to take that next step once again this season with a brand new head coach. That's a question mark that will be answered, of course, this season. And always with that type of stuff, that's one thing to, of course, look at. So, very exciting once again here this time. So, again, that's been a fun one. I've been Jacob Young. This has been Real Sports Live. We're going to end a couple minutes early here as it looks like they're setting up for something very quickly. And so we're going to end it, and hopefully you all enjoyed this one. We'll be back for the show, whether or not it's at a different location or back here. I've been Jacob.